Hello everyone and welcome into a brand new Civilization 6 tutorial. Today we are going back to basics before we even get into the game, and we are going to take a look at all the pre-game settings. The reason for this tutorial, instead of me finishing up my city settlement tutorial, is because recently a lot of people in a lot of different Civ streams that I've been hopping in and out of have asked a lot of questions that have to do with the settings of the game. So we're going to do one tutorial quickly on all the settings you have to tinker with before the game starts and what they all do and what that means for you as a Civilization player. And then we're going to hop into game and look at the separate in-game settings menu just to make sure you're comfortable with all that. Again, like most tutorials, if you are familiar with Civilization 6, this probably isn't the tutorial for you, but hey, maybe you might learn something anyways. And also, just again with all the other tutorials, this is just my opinion on some stuff. We're going to take a look at some things. There are so many other Civ streamers out there. I'm sure there are other settings videos for Civilization. Watch them. Learn something from everyone. You'll be a better Civ player for it. I'm just some dude on the internet who plays Civ a lot. Anyways, let's go and create a game. So this is your first decision point when you're looking at the settings. If you just want to quickly create a game, you can do that here. You can choose your leader, your difficulty, your game speed, your map type, your map size, and then if you want to turn on apocalypse mode, you can do that as well. And then there's disaster intensity on the bottom. I'm not sure about consoles actually now that I'm thinking about this. I don't know if you guys have the advanced setup menu, but I've never not set up a game in advanced setup. So all you have to do is click this advanced setup button and boom, you have a plethora of settings for you. Now, when you adjust these settings, you should adjust them for what you want to get out of Civ, right? If I am playing my deity challenge, I keep everything as standard as possible to make it just like as fair as possible for me to play. But you can abuse these settings. Abuse isn't even the right word. You can change these settings to make yourself have the most amount of fun in Civ. Right? So the first thing up here, the most important thing, is going to be your leader selection. So you can give yourself a random leader. You can choose your leader, obviously. Right? For this little tutorial here, let's choose Peter of Russia. Right? Just next to Peter, you can choose what color you want your civilization to be. A lot of people in the Civ community call these jerseys or skin colors or whatever it is. It doesn't really matter, but I think this is PC specific. I don't think you can do this on consoles. But this is a cool little Easter egg. It's kind of just hidden in here for those of you who wanna play Russia but don't like the yellow and black look. You want to go for the blue and white look. That is all good. And the game will automatically adjust the other civilization's colors to match yours. So if you take blue and white, America, who is normally blue and white, will take another set of colors, if that makes sense. And then here, just like everything else, you can choose the leaders you play with, or you can keep them random. For instance, if I'm doing a deity challenge, I'll keep them random just for a little bit of equity. But sometimes you might want to play like, hey, I want to do a faith race with all the faith civs. Like, let's get all the faith civs in a game and see who wins it, right? So you might put Peter in there. You might scroll through and be like, Tamaris, no, that's more domination. Let's leave Tamaris out. Where's another faith civ at? Let's put another faith civ in, if that makes sense. Or domination, you might be like, I'm going to play Gran Colombia, and we're going to put Tamaris in, and we're going to put Genghis Khan in, and you can have fun with that. So choosing the leaders manually can increase or decrease your enjoyment of Civ depending on what you are going for in your specific game. So that option is there for you. This doesn't choose where they spawn on the map or anything, so it's just like they're in the game. But like Genghis Khan, if I put him second, he won't spawn near me second. He could still be on the other side of the map, if that makes sense. All right. Over on this side are where the meat and potatoes of your settings lie. Rule set is just your expansion. So if you have multiple DLC, you can come in here and choose which DLC you want to play. And it even tells you what's in them. So Rise and Fall includes great people or great ages, loyalty, governors, and emergencies. Right, Gathering Storm adds World Congress, environmental effects, disasters, those types of things. So if you have multiple DLCs, you want to try something on an older patch, that's how you select it right here. Your game difficulty, this is something you've been choosing anyway. This is no different in this screen than it is on the other one. Your start era is quite important. So at the very end of this video, I'm gonna show you what different start eras do. They can help you speed the game along a little bit. Almost every game I've ever played is started in the ancient era, right? Like most people don't ever change this, but I want to show you what this does because you can have some fun with this if you're looking for a good time in Civ. But we'll do that at the end of the video, so there's not a weird kind of cut in the middle. Your game speed, right? Almost everything that you find on YouTube in terms of tips, tricks, those types of things is based on your standard normal game speed, right? So if you go to Epic or Marathon, the games take longer, 200% longer for Marathon and 50% for Epic. And then there's Quick, 33% faster. And then Online, which is the multiplayer speed. One thing to keep in mind is changing your game speed changes the balance of the game, which is why I said the tips are kind of based on standard speed, a lot of the info you'll have, right? For instance, in Quick, the game is happening 33% faster. But if I build a scout, I'll build the scout 33% faster, but it can still only move 1 or 2 tiles per turn. If that makes sense. So there's weird like little balancing things that throw off some timings of certain things. So if you're playing a science victor and you're like, by this turn, I want to have this many campuses. By this turn, I want to have democracy so I can get my trade routes. By this turn, I want to have the Ruhr Valley so I get all that production. By this turn, I want to launch the Earth satellite. If you have those metrics for yourself, you kind of have to throw them out a little bit when you're playing on any other speed but standard. Right? Because the game doesn't balance everything equally, and so you just have to be aware of that. City-states, as much or as few as you like. Sometimes it can be fun to put a really small map with a lot of city-states, or however you want to have fun with that. But this is just as easy as it says it is. However many you select, how many city-states will be in the game. Again, it does not select which ones will be in the game or where they spawn. I played a game recently as China, which you guys will see on YouTube, that had 5 military city-states and no culture city-states, which sucked for me because I was going for a culture victory. Disaster intensity is a Gathering Storm specific thing, I believe. When you up your disaster intensity, things hit the fan a little bit. There's lots of volcano eruptions, lots of flooding, lots of cities losing population. It's chaos. It's fun, but it's chaos. Down here, minimal disasters. A lot of the disasters improve tiles. So pick at your leisure or peril, depending on what you want. But this also applies to everyone, so all your enemies' volcanoes will also be exploding equally. Map types, if you look here, it shows you all the different map types. It gives you a little picture of what they all look like, which is awesome. Your map type is something that you can use to your advantage. For instance, if you are playing a domination victory on a Pangaea map, that's much easier than playing it on a archipelago map. Right? Or on a continents map. Because let's say you are Genghis Khan and you just want to roam your cavalry around. On Pangaea, where'd Pangaea go? Pangaea right here. It's just one big landmass, so your cavalry can run around and do whatever they want. On a continents map, for instance, you're going to need to tech into sailing and to tech into boats and to tech into frigates. And you're probably going to need to take some coastal cities with a navy, and that's a whole separate addition to the game. Whereas if you play it on Pangaea, you can kind of just avoid all of the naval stuff. So a lot of deity players, myself included, play a lot of games on Pangaea because it just helps you not have to deal with boats and stuff if what you're trying to go for is like a Korea science victory and you just don't want to have to tech into boats to settle your cities and whatnot. This is a good way to do it, right? For instance, if you're playing Herald, right, or Dido, and you have a huge naval presence, pick an archipelago map. Use that navy, get your boats out there, and conquer the world. Your map type can be picked based on what'll make you have the most fun in the game. And if you're playing a Civ, right, like Herald of Norway, that wants to go around and pillage everyone with their boats, pick a map where there's lots of room for boats to go around and pillage everyone. Don't pick Pangaea, where that's not an option, right, where you'll be doing a lot less of that. So map types are fun. In Deity, a lot of people play on Pangaea just because it makes things a little bit easier, and having one landmass makes the game a little more straightforward because we're making it much more difficult on ourselves. But you can choose so many different map types for so many different things. 7 Seas is becoming more popular nowadays, but definitely play around with the map types and see how you like them. But just know that depending on what your civilization's leader is good at, this could increase or decrease your enjoyment pretty fundamentally. right? Map size, small to huge. All that does is increase the amount of players, city-states in the game. And so what is important with this decision is kind of what victory type you're going for. If you're going culture or domination, obviously the more people in the game, the harder that's going to be. So winning a culture or domination victory on a huge map is much, much harder than winning it on a tiny map where there's only 4 players, right? Having more players to dominate or more players to collect tourists from make things a little bit harder. It also increases the chances that someone else is going for your victory type, right? If you're going for a culture victory against 3 other players, there's a decent chance the other 3 might not be. If you're going against however many players this is, 18, that's 18 city-states. What is this, 12 people? Yeah, 12 players. If you're going against 12 players, that's a lot to have to take over with culture or domination. So just keep in mind that the more people you have, the harder it is to win certain victory types. Also, this will mess up your computer if you don't have a good computer. If you are playing like on the bare minimum settings and stuff, you are going into CPU overload to process this many player turns every turn. So just make sure your computer can support this before you decide to go into a huge map. Resources are sparse to abundant. All it does is increase the amount of resources. I always go higher on naval games because I find there's not usually a lot of fish or crabs or pearls or turtles or other things like that. And when you're playing on archipelago or maps with really small islands, you need those ocean resources so you can pop them up to abundant, right? And then sparse means there's less resources. So if you are a resource-based civ, that'll make that a little more difficult for you. World age is really fun. It increases the amount, or it changes the amounts of hills, mountains, and volcanoes. So a new world has more of those things. Old world has less of those things. Then you have standard, which is the same, and random. Start position, balanced. All players have equally good starting spots. I still don't know how the game decides this because I think the game really sucks at picking starting spots a lot of the time. But hey, that's just me. Standard, starting positions, and a legendary. All players have a great but not necessarily equal start, so that's something for you to mess around with. I know a lot of people who just play on legendary starts and have fun with it. There's also a lot of mods people use. Better Balanced Start is one I can think of to balance out the starts for everyone. I always play on standard, but that option's there for you if you want to mess around with it. Temperature, so this is really important why we picked Peter, right? This is a good example. Peter is really good with a lot of tundra, right? He does well with tundra tiles, which a lot of civs don't do well with tundra tiles. So if we're playing Peter, we might want to make the map cold. A map with more tundra and snow and less desert, right? Give ourselves the tundra we need to have fun. Same with Canada. Now, if you're playing Mansa Musa, where's Mansa Musa at? Where's that troublemaker? There he is. Mansa Musa does well with desert tiles, right? So in a Mansa Musa game, you might want to make the map hot. A map with more desert and less tundra and snow. Give yourself the tiles that you need, right? Same with Brazil. Brazil does really well with rainforest tiles. Where's Brazil at? Why can I not remember the leader of Brazil here? I'm going to get there. I'm going to find it. This is embarrassing for everyone. Pedro! There's Pedro. Brazil does really, really well with jungle tiles. I believe so. Is that correct? That is correct, right? Rainforest tiles provide +1. Yeah, it is. Okay, it is Brazil. I was like triple guessing myself there, but it is Brazil. For rainfall, you might want to go wet. A map with more woods, rainforest, and marsh. Because you want rainforest tiles as Brazil. Right? Arid, a map with less woods, rainforest, and marsh. So you get the point with all of these settings here. Right? Because they can be used to give you tiles you need to have fun with your leader. Right? Sea level is interesting. A lot of plays people make, right, is that they'll pick an archipelago map. They'll pick one of these maps here, right, with a lot of small islands, but then they'll lower the sea level to give themselves just a little bit less land. Or a little bit more land, sorry. A map with less water. So that's a good way to manipulate the map to get somewhere in between small continents and archipelago, is to go archipelago, but then go low sea level to make those islands just a little bit bigger. High sea level adds more water, and standard is just normal, so nothing really crazy there. This is your game mode selection, right? This is where you turn victory conditions on and off. So if you uncheck culture victory, no one can win a culture victory, right? It's as simple as that. If you uncheck these, no one can win any of these victories. I always turn off score victory because I don't want anyone. I want to win or lose the game in one of the actual victory types, not through a score victory. Score victories are nice if you have an X amount of time and you're playing with friends and you're like, hey, let's keep the score victory on. Or you just want to, I only want to play 300 turns. Whoever does the best after 300 turns wins the game. I always play with score victory off and no turn limit. By default, the game turn limit is set to 500 turns. I've never played a game that ever got anywhere close to 500 turns. This is just habit from Civ 5, but I always turn score victory off and turn no turn limit off. And it forces, like, I've got to win or someone else has got to win with one of these victories. The game will not end until that happens, right? I don't think I'll ever get to 500 turns, but I don't want to risk it. I want to win or lose on these. But that's pretty much what these do. If you go to no turn limit, the score victory is automatically turned off because the score victory only triggers after the turn limit to decide who has the highest score, if that makes sense, right? So if you turn this back on, you can select score victory again. I always play score victory off, no turn limit. And these are just nice, fun little things that you can do. No duplicate civs, I always have on. No duplicate leaders, I always have on. No barbs, no teams, no tribal villages, and team share visibility. This is all kind of quality of life stuff you can choose if you like to. Just again, be aware of balance. If you turn barbarians off, it means you can't clear barbarian camps early, which is one of the best ways to get era score early, so you'll have a higher chance of having dark ages early on in the game. So just be aware of the balance that happens when you change these things and make sure it's something that you want for your game. I wouldn't worry at all about the map and the random seeds and all the game seeds and stuff. You can just leave those. They don't really do much for you. That's how the game knows to generate the map that you've selected. Right, but I've never once looked at this or touched it or anything. I know people use seeds to do like game of the week on certain things so people can all play the same map, but if you're just a casual Civ player, those mean nothing to you. Now, that is all finished. That is all done. We have gone over all the settings in the Create a Game screen. All right, the last thing I want to do is I want to start a game. We're going to start on a small map so it loads nice and quickly here. I'm going to load a game on a small map, and I'm going to choose a different start era. I'm going to choose modern. I'm going to choose the modern era so you can see what happens if we start the game kind of like 3/4 of the way through in terms of eras. I will be right back in the modern era on a small map to show you what it looks like when you start. All right, we are here and we have started a game in the modern era. As you can see, we are more kitted out than we normally are. We have 2 settlers, 3 settlers, a whole bunch of military, and we are good to go in this game. We are starting in the modern era, so normally you start with a warrior and a settler. Not here. We are starting with a whole bunch of stuff, and what you start with changes based on what era you have decided to play. If you choose the modern era, I believe everything up until that era is unlocked, right? So you don't have to tech any of this stuff before the modern era. It's just already unlocked, and you start at the modern era ready to go. And you have all these things boosted, which is kind of nice. These initial 4 choices here are boosted. I believe it's the same with culture. Let's open her up. Yep, you have all of these options for you right up until the modern era hits. These ones aren't all boosted though, so that sucks for you. That sucks for you modern era starters that you have to tech into these without boosting them. But that's totally fine. Anyways, I hope that was a good tutorial on some of the settings. Next time in the next tutorial, which should come out probably the day after this one, I'm recording them at the same time, we're going to take a look at the in-game options here and see what they do and what you should be selecting. I hope this tutorial was helpful for you. I know my tutorials run a bit on the long side, but hey, you know what? We're all having fun here. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, definitely click that like button. It really helps other people discover the video, discover more Civ tutorials. Definitely go and check out all the other great Civ channels out there for more tips and tricks to make sure that you are getting the widest variety of knowledge possible. Hit that subscribe button if you don't want to miss any more Civ tutorials, Civ gameplay, any other Civilization stuff. We play Civ a lot on this channel. I'd love for you to come hang out with us. We also have a live stream. Twitch.tv/VanBradley is where you can find us live. I hope this tutorial was useful. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.